if your partner does grant you that gift of like, I'm going to show you my masturbation routine, like definitely take some fucking notes, right?
Yep.
Like that is priceless information about your partner's pleasure. And I think to your point, gifting your partner something that is really oriented towards them helps build that trust, like that intimate, erotic trust between the two of you that then just enhances your intimacy.
Hello, and welcome to Fuck Yeah, the podcast where we say fuck yeah to gifting sex toys. I'm one of your hosts, Robin, here with Sarah. Hi, Sarah. Feeling festive?
I'm getting there. Yeah. I'm getting there. We are recording in the evening hours, or it feels like evening because it gets dark so early.
Yeah,
and
it's like a little after 4, but it's evening now, I guess.
Yeah, like I feel like I should have a festive beverage in hand,
right?
Oh, yeah.
A little tea. We put up the decorations yesterday. As is tradition after Thanksgiving. So it feels nice. I always enjoy when it goes up, and then by January I'm like, get this shit fucking cluttered everywhere. But it's feeling cozy right now. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, we're holding off because we are getting ready to leave for Texas for my cousin's wedding. And, we have a kitten from our foster fail situation. And I just don't trust her with the tree and all the things with the cat sitter when we're gone. So I'm actually really jonesing to put my decorations up, and I have not yet.
Yep, you got to wait. Do you do a real tree or no?
I did every year until about 2-3 years ago. And I was like, I'm done buying trees.
Right.
I'm going to get a plastic one.
Yeah.
I will go back to real trees at some point, I think. But it is pretty nice just to it's ready to go.
Yep.
Yeah. It's not a new expense every year.
Just dig it out of the storage. Yeah. That's how I like it.
Yeah.
Oh, do you have any fuck yes right now?
Well, no, yes, but I think I would like to pay tribute to someone in the industry who passed yesterday. A friend of ours, a colleague, friend, a bit of a mentor to me in some regards. Dean Elliott, the owner and founder of Sliquid, has crossed over into the other realm. I'm feeling very heavy today. I think because it when someone is so audacious and bombastic and big, like he had a really big spirit. It's sort of shocking that light goes out or can, and there's been so many beautiful tributes and posts to him actually on Facebook, because that's where a lot of like the sex toy, there's a professional group of folks on Facebook, and he touched a lot of lives, and he was a very particular personality, right? Like, I don't think everyone loved Dean, but if you loved him, like you really loved him hard. Like he was a good hugger, a loud talker. He had like a love for all things Jersey. I feel like my friendship with him was very unexpected. I don't have a lot of people in my life who are like Dean. And so the fact that we connected as much as we did, and his apartment in New York became a second home to me when we were building out that store on the Upper East Side of New York City. And yeah, I'm really going to miss him.
Yeah. Yeah. A titan in the industry, someone who founded one of the most respected lube companies that really paved the way, or at least showed the way towards like more natural substances and ingredients in lubricants, ones that are like nourishing. And but then also just as a person, like he really would make me at least feel very special every time I saw him. His reaction to me just walking into a room was like bigger than, you get on a stage sometimes, it was just like, "What?" The energy was so vibrant and infectious. And he was a big personality, but he had a very positive kind of tone to his energy that I really appreciated. It always felt light and beautiful, even when he was talking about more serious things like his health difficulties that he was having.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as a consumer, I mean, I have my Sliquid C lube here with me, and we're going to talk about gifting sex toys and the like when to gift them and who to gift them to and the best things to give. And I will just say that lube is my number one thing that I think a quality lubricant is something that everyone should have because it's just hands down the pleasure enhancer for all kinds of play, all kinds of bodies. Except if you have a shitty lube that's tacky or gives you a yeast infection or kind of like makes you feel uncomfortable. And that I don't know if I've talked about this much on the podcast, but so before having Ruby, I had chronic yeast infections for a little over 10 years.
Ugh.
Like, I mean, and they were really bad. I was at the doctor a lot because they would escalate. And so there were very few, I'm very sensitive. And so there were few lubes that like didn't really mess my shit up when I used them. And Sliquid was the first lube that I found that I was like, okay, this doesn't mess me up. And especially with some of the side effects that came from ongoing vaginal infections, my like externally, the tissue was really sensitive and sometimes raw, and like not using lube wasn't an option for me.
Right.
And so I started using this lube, 16, 17, maybe 18 years ago. And I've tried all the other lubes because I'm a good sex educator and I want to know what's up, but this is what I go back to every day.
And Sliquid C specifically, or any Sliquid?
Yeah, because of the carrageenan that's in it. Well, first of all, Sliquid C, I like the consistency. It's the same as the pink bottle, Sliquid Sassy. It's the same viscosity, which is just a little bit thicker. So some people like more watery lubricants, in which case you just want to go with the original Sliquid formulation. But this is a little bit of a thicker formulation. Sliquid Sassy was originally designed for anal play, but when Sliquid C came out, there's added carrageenan, which just helps with like small fissures and tears in the tissue, especially like for anal play. It's really relevant to have as much of a cushion as possible to avoid fissures. But the carrageenan, and I think that there's a seaweed extract in it as well that just helps a little bit with the slipperiness and the repair, and I love it. And it's great with toys. So like I'm a big toy user.
Any toy.
I know people who have sex primarily with hands or penises really love silicone lubricant because it's super slick. It doesn't absorb into the skin. I use a lot of toys, so I don't like having different kinds of lube around. Like I want it to be compatible with everything. I actually like Of course, the slickness of silicone lube is really nice, but for me, the water-based lube gives me a glide
Mm-hmm.
without completely eliminating friction.
Right.
Because I like just a little bit of drag or pull on like the skin on skin or skin on silicone or whatever. Like I like to feel just a little bit of that drag. If it's too slippery, it's just not my preference.
I've come around from silicone. I was all silicone all the time, but it's actually the opposite feeling to me. It's almost like the silicone has a like less slickness that,
Mm.
or maybe it's like too much cushion, but less slickness that makes it kind of have a drag that was too much for me. Like I wanted more wetness, and I'm like primarily just using toys anyway. So I'm not really, and I agree, like it's just weird to have all of these incompatible things in your drawer. Like I just want them to all work together. Um, but I just want to make a quick note about Sliquid C that and Sassy, that those repair qualities that they have are also great for perimenopause and postmenopausal vaginas. Um, because I just started my regimen of like hormonal stuff because I'm starting to have, the atrophy effects already, but it's just so much easier to harm myself or to get worn out or whatever it is. Like it's so having that kind of healing lubricant is really nice.
Yes, I talk about some of the products that can be helpful to switch over to once you're in perimenopause.
Hmm.
And for some folks, like the vaginal dryness and just like the kind of softening of the elasticity of the tissue and those sorts of changes make it so that having a daily vaginal moisturizer is
Hmm.
helpful. And Sliquid actually makes a daily vaginal moisturizer, which you can also use for sex, but it's just a little bit, it's more kind of subtle and it feels a little bit more like lotion than it does
Mm.
like a thick lubricant. And it's Sliquid satin and you
Okay.
can use it daily. So for some folks, and this happened to me too when I had yeast infections, like the tissue of like my labia and my vulva would get so dried out
Hmm.
that like just the friction
Hmm.
of it rubbing against itself caused tears. So
Yeah.
sometimes like my labia would bleed
Mm.
just from existing.
Mm.
And I know that that's also a thing that can happen to some folks in, perimenopause or as they've crossed over into full blown menopause. And in which case, like a daily moisturizer that is pH balanced,
Hmm.
that is safe to use on that mucous membrane, that's not going to stain your underwear, those kinds of things, like is really a nice to have thing.
Yep. Another level of self-care.
Yeah.
Oh, so should we talk some sex toys?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just us, but I gift sex toys all the time. I know it's because of our profession and everything, but I'm assuming that outside of people working in the adult industry, that other people might also want to gift a erotic or self-care down there kind of toy to a friend, even a relative or their partner, or who knows who. So we've come up with a few suggestions.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that like the common gifting, or say maybe the socially acceptable gifting of sex toys, if you are not a sex toy aficionado like we are, is bachelorette gifts.
Mm-hmm.
So when someone's
Right.
getting married,
Mm-hmm.
when someone gets divorced,
Yep.
really nice time to, get them a sex toy.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, partners is where we see a lot of gifting of sex toys. But we have been in conversation a lot lately about what about young people, not children,
Right.
young adults. So as you're crossing over into adulthood, is it appropriate to gift a sex toy?
Yes. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I mean, this is
I think it's one of the best times to give. I get very excited for somebody crossing into adulthood, and especially when I know that they haven't had any toys in their lives. I've been that auntie. I think it's a very auntie vibe where you're just like, okay, here we are. So here's a few things to start you off like on an exploration, and please come to me when you have questions or want more or anything like that. Or to get them started on their own exploration, that their own purchases and directions that they might want to go to. So I always like to give like a little bit of this and a little bit of that at the beginning. Do you have a preference on toys that you like to give to newly anointed?
Well, the thing is like I don't have a lot of experience gifting to young people. Like I always I'm the oldest in my family of all the cousins. So I always imagined when my cousins turned 18 that I would gift them toys. And then I didn't. But partially like we live in different states. And, my friends' kids haven't quite crossed over into that age range yet. So like in theory, I want to gift sex toys to young adults.
Yeah.
But in practice, I haven't done it a lot. So a couple of things that I've observed over the years from like helping people get sex toys for young people is like, I've definitely had moms bring their daughters into a sex shop and be like, I am here with you. You're going to be able to ask questions. This is, I'm invested in your pleasure being something that you have ownership over. So like here, you have to kind of use your better judgment with like based on your relationship with the person, right? I mean, and this is going to be true of friends as well.
Yes.
Like gifting a toy is not weird for us, but some people are going to be like, wow, you've just crossed over this boundary into like this space that is the thing I don't talk to other people about. But I will say of the like first time toys, I feel like the thing I hear the most is everybody had a bullet. Like this was the introductory product that was accessible. Maybe they got it as like a freebie in a gift bag, like something that has multiple speeds, that's small in size. And my new favorite bullet, like hands down, is the Magic Wand Micro.
Right. Of course. Yeah.
Like it's a teeny little 3.5-inch wand and it has multiple speeds and it has some vibration patterns. And it's just really cute. Like it's perfect for a young person because miniatures are such a young adult is what I mean. I'm not
right.
Again, I'm not talking about children, but like this aesthetic of small things is very in right now. And, and I'm saying this as I work for Magic Wand, but at some point in this conversation, I'm going to talk about how I have become a Magic Wand user in the last year.
Yeah.
But the thing that Magic Wand just came out with is this collection of little cute bags that are Magic Wand inspired.
Oh.
They're designed by Julie Malo. She's a accessory designer in Brooklyn. So they're all handmade in Brooklyn. And there's a number of different styles. A lot of them fit the little micro. So like you can fit your micro and your lube in there. And it's like a little storage bag. And it's really, really cute. And it's just like a nice stocking stuffer or a first time gift. Like getting someone a little storage bag, a lube, and, a Magic Wand Micro as their first exploration of like, please go enjoy your body.
I think it's so cute too. Like you're saying, the aesthetic of it, it looks just like the traditional large one that is just, in the collective consciousness of Magic Wand, but just so small, but it still has that amazing rumble that no one has been able to duplicate. But it definitely doesn't go up to those extreme heights, which I think is that the largest one will do. But I think that's actually really great for someone who's just starting off with vibration. Like Magic Wand is such a staple. And I think that eventually everyone should have at least tried it at some point, but I don't think it's like necessarily like a beginner toy because it's so big and there's the sound level, but there's also the intensity level, which I think should be kind of worked up to on some level.
Well, I mean, I'll speak for myself.
Yes.
Like, I mean, I've been at this for a long time, and everyone, like all the sex toy nerds, the bloggers, the educators, like everyone is pro magic wand. And when I first used it, I think I did that pretty typical approach of just like putting it onto my clit, which a newbie, like anybody who's new to sex toys, whether it's a young adult or, you know, someone who's gotten divorced, right, and never used a toy, isn't going to know that actually using a toy over the like warming up with the pubic mound, especially with something that's really powerful that you can get those like deep vibrations like running through your body to warm up. If you don't know that that's the best way to use a powerful vibrator with like a broad head, like the magic wand, then you're going to just stick it straight on your clit. And that is a recipe for
jumping across the room.
Way over stimulation. And certainly like, I think some people can get off in like 10 seconds with the magic wand, and that's awesome for them and they love it. But I like having a little bit more variety. So actually, when I started working for Magic Wand, I was like, okay, I have to really do my due diligence now of like understanding this motor, because it is totally different than any of the other vibrator motors in how it is designed. It's a, you know, it's a patented design that creates a rumble that no other vibrator motor creates. So I started with the micro and I was like, oh, this is great. I love the micro. I like worked my way up to the mini because it has a little bit of a higher high. And then now I can like occasionally use the full size wand, even though I'm not someone who needs a lot of power. There is some real value in like, you know, like getting it on your butt cheeks or your thighs and just like letting it kind of rumble the whole area for warm up. And when I was on the retreat a few weeks back, there was a marathon runner who was there, and she uses her magic wand religiously, as many magic wand users do, but she also uses it on her feet for recovery after her runs.
Wow.
So it's a therapeutic massager for her. And she was describing how it also brings a little bit of this element of eroticism into her like post-run experience, because when she uses it, like her husband uses it on her back to like soothe those muscles. They use it on her feet after she's done these big runs, and the vibration has gotten kind of like it's very familiar to her, and it's associated with like all of these positive feelings. So then even though they're not having sex with it all the time, there is a little bit of that element in those therapeutic massages that she really loves.
I love that when there's erotic outside of overtly sexual situations.
Yeah.
It's like bring it into the daily. I love that.
So cool.
What was I going to say about that? Oh, you know what changed the magic wand for me? And I have a couple of questions for you also, because, so I love the magic wand, but I didn't use it all the time. But I've really gotten into it in like the past year, like you. I mean, there's a lot of things going on in my life that led to that, but it's like, partially what changed for me was also the knowledge that I've ingrained now of what the true shape of the clitoris is, that it's not just this like baby erection, you know, at the top of my vulva, that it has like the knowledge of the legs and being able to really feel the clitoral legs and the erectile tissue and everything that's going on down there. I focus a lot of the magic wand attention on that. And I feel like the orgasms are changing in this whole other way. Like I'm getting into like more multiple orgasms. I'm getting into these kind of like deep body, like longer orgasms. And I would say little to almost no time is actually like directly on the tip of the clitoris.
Are you saying when you like focus it on that, do you mean like you sort of like run it down the sides of your vulva to like get at the internal legs that wrap around the vaginal canal?
I would say it's more directed towards the legs, but it's almost like I'll do it from one side or the other, kind of just putting a lot of broad pressure around like the labia and vaginal opening, like below the pubic bone area where it's just kind of like meaty, but then also a lot, like you were saying, of the like mons, like above the clitoris area. Or I find like putting pressure on the mons with my hand, my free hand, and then pressure vibration from the magic wand, like more on like the labia is like, it's fucking awesome.
Yeah. I don't have the really fucking amazing vulva puppet that you gave me, but I have this really big clunky one. Hold on. I mean, I have it. It's just I have it in my kit. I was teaching with it. So I can't reach it right now. But like what you're describing is kind of like have you heard of the rock and roll technique that Betty Dodson taught in her like consciousness raising circles? It's now I think the modality is called body sex, where you bring together a whole bunch of folks with vulvas and you spend the whole weekend together. Everyone's got their vulvas out. You like gaze at your vulva, you really get to know it, and then you masturbate all together with a trained facilitator taught by Betty Dodson.
Yeah, we talked about this in the Ashley Manta episode.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where I first heard about it. And it has changed how I interact. Like I do a lot more movements because of it, instead of that just being still and like letting something happen.
Yeah, because she would say like hold it up above and then basically like you're thrusting into the wand. I'm using a smaller wand here if you're on Patreon and can see, but usually the head would be a little bit bigger. And then you can kind of like run it all the way down. But that like thrusting up into the wand, I think is not only the best way to take advantage of those really heavy duty vibrations, but it also like, have you heard this? That the act of thrusting our hips actually sends, like our brain is wired to know that when we thrust our hips, it's like an erotic motion and it helps build arousal. So like more blood flow comes into the genitals when you're actually thrusting versus like if you're kind of just laying there. So if someone's giving you oral sex, if you're having sex, like getting that undulating motion while you're masturbating, it really helps enhance the sensation.
Yeah, and make it a much more dynamic situation that you're in.
Yeah.
I like that. One thing that I have learned, and this is it. So I have this trick where if I'm wearing pants that have an elastic waist, which is almost all the time. Right now I'm wearing a onesie. So in this case, I would not be able to do it. But if I bring my pants down a little bit, so my butt's out and I'm like laying on my back and I'm magic wanding, if you push up on the handle, this is with like the full magic wand. Like if the head is like on my labia, I can push forward on the handle and the resistance, it'll be against the stretch pants and put this incredible amount of pressure that I wouldn't be able to apply by myself. It's like a leverage type thing. So it's like, I don't know, if you're at the holidays and you're in your pajamas, I recommend it.
I love it.
So, okay, we've spent some time on the magic wand, and I feel like we could all day. Although you did say something to me about the person with 2 magic wands.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So this was nuts also. So like using 2 magic wands simultaneously.
Oh my God.
So you kind of like position one up on the mons and then you can bring the other one down like either on the butt cheeks or sort of like around the vaginal opening. And it creates like it's the rumble, like the 2 rumbles are like meeting in the middle because that vibration gets really deep in there.
Yes.
So you're like creating surround sound.
Unbelievable. I have to.
Yeah,
actually
you gotta try it for and report back.
Yes, I'm going to try it. We can report back. So yes, it never even occurred to me to use two. So some people are really outside the magic wand box thinking here. That's pretty great.
I love it. I actually miss talking to more people on the regular. Like selling sex toys was always so informative because their idea, like people are endlessly creative.
So creative.
With their sex.
I do want to say one more thing about the magic wand is I want to ask you, do you have like a different sensation of your orgasm with magic wand?
Well, okay. So this is a thing that I realized this year when I started really exploring with it. So there's a couple positions in partner play that I always use a vibrator on. So I wouldn't say like in solo play that I noticed that the orgasm changed significantly. It was more just like, oh, this is a different sensation and it gets me there in a slightly different way. But then when I brought the micro into partner play and had that kind of dual stimulation experience of like internal penetration with the micro as my external vibrator, I was like, oh, whoa. It was like, how do I describe it? Like the depth of it was almost like the orgasm got like deeper.
Yes.
Like that there were more layers to it.
Yep.
Whereas like, you know, or like if you're thinking of a rainbow versus a gradient, like it was just like there wasn't a distinction between the layers. It just was like it kind of just kept going inside my body in this way that I was like, oh, there's that rumble.
You know, it has that big feeling. It's like big and kind of weirdly joyous. And this is something only the magic wand does to me, and it doesn't do it to me every time, but sometimes I just start crying. And not like I'm crying, but like my eyes are watering. I don't know what that's about. It sets off some like, it's like a pressure point or something. It's not emotional. It's just my eye. It's like getting your nose pierced and your eye's just going to leak, you know, but it's both my eyes and I'll be like, ooh, magic wand.
So yeah, in the gifting realm, to this wedding that I'm going to, I am bringing magic wand minis and gifting them to everybody. I'm finally giving my cousins, everybody is getting a magic wand mini.
Nice. I love it. You get a mini and you get a mini.
You get a mini. Yeah.
And I think that's what they're really great for. So you can give a quality, awesome toy that is not like you can open it in a group, maybe not with parents or something, but it's not cringy feeling, you know?
Yeah.
It's exciting and nice. You're like, oh, okay, great. Awesome. So that's a great one for like people that are new to toys, or if you're doing the Bachelorette or something like that. Or
like gifting to a friend.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially if they haven't tried magic wand before. But now I'm like, oh, all my magic wand people, I'm going to get them another magic wand. Be like, how about two then?
Yeah.
You know? So there's that. So one thing I wanted to address and talk about is like, how do you give a sex toy as a gift to a friend without being a creep? You know, and I think that there's like some important distinctions that come really naturally to us because we have sexual conversations all the time. And we did so for work and we continue to do so for work. So it's a little bit different, I think, if you're not in this industry and you're like, well, I know this person would really love this toy, but is it appropriate to give? Like, do you have some ideas on what would draw the line between delightful and creepy?
Well, I guess the question I would be asking myself if I were not me, would be like, what's the context of this friendship?
Mm-hmm.
Do we do hikes together or yoga or like go to the spa together? Like, is this the kind of friend that I do self-carry things with?
Mm-hmm.
And if so, that's the in. Like,
yeah,
probably gifting it either with a note
mm-hmm.
or with like a preface of, hey, this has also been a really meaningful part of my self-care routine.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to share it with you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say, like, if you have sexual feelings towards this friend, don't give them a sex toy.
Oh, yeah.
You know, or if you
advice.
feel those vibes from them,
Yeah.
just don't cross sexual lines. But if this is like a friend whom like you're actively discussing each other's sex lives, you're like really interpersonal buddies in that way, but there is no like romance between you, I think like it can be a great thing. But the creepy side, I think, would be like if it came off as a come on in any way, you know, that wouldn't be cool. I almost feel like it either has to be totally platonic or it has to be you're already in a sexual relationship in order to gift.
Yeah. I think that's a great distinction. And I think like if you are coming with the intention of sharing something that is you've found really useful in your life, like pleasure, and someone receives that in a creepy way, then that's like just good information to have, right?
Right.
Like their boundaries are in a different place than yours, and their reaction actually has nothing to do with you if that's not, you know, the angle that you're coming at them with.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think it's scary for some folks, right? Because like the normies out there are not exactly talking about like, wanting to experience pleasure or even thinking that like pleasure is a birthright.
Right.
And so once you've like crossed over into understanding like, oh, actually everything I do in my life is better when I'm experiencing pleasure and joy and sexual pleasure. Someone said something to me recently, which is like, there's a lot of different paths to get to your spiritual enlightenment or your personal development, or you're kind of like leveling up on your path. And sexual exploration just happens to be one of those things because it gets us closer to source. It gets us closer to ourselves and it gets us closer to like this larger energy that's out there. Right.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that being part of your path. And if someone responds to you as if like you're deviant for giving them a vibrator, then like that's just really good information to have. Like, oh, we're not aligned in this area.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And it's not that there's anything wrong with you.
Yeah. Unless you're giving it as a come on. Just don't give a sex toy as a come on. It's not an opener.
Yeah, not cute. Not cute.
He's like, oh, I like sex toys. Do you like sex toys? Wink, wink. Ew. Yes, I agree. Oh, one thing that I think is nice to give to newly anointed adults, particularly if they're on the feminist slant and on the progressive slant, is the book Pleasure Activism, which really opened up my mind to a lot of ideas that I, at 40, had never even considered when I read it, and is like a big part of me going on this deconstruction of comp het. So I think it's a really great thing for someone to read early on, and maybe skipping some of the steps, you know, of like not necessarily having to go through this whole process of like, you know, how you go about, experiencing pleasure, how it can be commodified, how it can be weaponized, how it can be used, like you're saying, for energy work and enlightenment and all of these things. It has so many different things going on. And it's a really wonderful, you know, waxing of pleasure ideas, going beyond like what the cultural sex positivity that you normally get. It's very, very interesting.
Yeah. I love that call out. And Adrienne Marie Brown has a new book, Loving Corrections, which I think looks really good. And her new deck, she did a like an Oracle tarot deck.
Oh, wow.
Is coming out this year too. So those might be some nice gifts to give.
That sounds great.
I had a theme for a gift.
Yes.
For us to talk about. Also inspired from being at the couples retreat in Costa Rica. Partially, this is I was very inspired by how people surprised me at the retreat. You know, like sometimes when you get in your queer bubble, you forget that straight het people can also be like curious, kind perverts. And like, you know, lovers of aliveness. And that was definitely like who this group was full of. And I taught a number of like a pleasure mapping workshop. And then we did like a kink class, kind of experiential class, actually at the very end of the retreat. And so I had brought a bunch of gear with me. And experiencing so many people spanking made me just get excited about how different people's needs are around this. And so I was thinking of like, for somebody who, I mean, I think our friends could gift this to each other. So maybe you've got a friend who's like really into impact play who you could encourage, but like perhaps a partner or a play partner or somebody, a kit of like how you create as many different sensations as possible in a spanking. Because so I had the Tantus, gosh, what is this thing called? Is it a...
It looks like a dragon tail is what they're usually called.
Yeah. It's their version of a dragon tail. I can't remember what they call it. And it's almost like you could... It's all silicone. Like you could use the handle for a little bit of penetration if you wanted to too. But it's like it's an impact device that is comes to a really tiny little tip. So it creates all these stinging sensations. And everybody was very fascinated by this thing at the retreat. They were like, oh, it's a little hard to wield. Like you've got to like really, I like holding the tip and using it to flick, but it creates some really fun, startling sensations. Yeah. And then my absolute favorite, which is the finger fork. I also had with me because it looks so mean. It's like a metal ring that you put on and it's got these little pokies at the end, but it can create really fun like tickling sensations. But if you have something like this out before someone's blindfold goes on, they definitely think it's going to be mean, which it can be, but it can also be like really sensual. So this kit would include, this is my suggestion, the dragon tail from Tantus or another dragon tail, a finger fork, something like a lollipop crop.
Oof.
Which
that's rough.
Which is also another kind of fun way to create a variety of different sensations. And also it's a circular, you know, silicone little crop. So you make little circle marks on people. It looks very cute. It dresses up nicely with like it's red, you know, a little holiday outfit. And then I had an experience of somebody who like literally there was not a way to spank this person hard enough. And I felt very sad that I could not spank them as hard as like the person who demoed for me, as hard as they would have liked. And I was like, oh, I'm so sad I did not bring my, what is this called? Paddle.
Yeah. I was like, your fraternity hazer?
This is, I think it's from the Kink line made by Doc Johnson. And it's large, but it has a metal core in it.
Oof. Is it wooden? Or leather?
No, it's leather. It feels great, actually. It's very, very thuddy. But like for somebody who cannot, like doesn't really have an intensity, like talk, like if you can't get to somebody, you know, if you like do
Right.
your like test this feels like a 5 to me. Like, and I did that as my demo and they were like, oh yeah, no, that's more like a 2 to me. And I was like, oh, okay. I got to really adjust up. Something, a paddle with a metal core really helps you to do that, like adjusting up to a higher level of intensity. Or even if you're like if you're trying to top a partner who's physically bigger than you, or who maybe you know, your dom sub styles, like your dom style isn't as intense as their like submissive style requires, then a big paddle with a metal core is like a really nice tool to have on hand.
Yeah, definitely let the implements do the work for you.
Yeah.
Because you can actually hurt yourself. I've definitely hurt my wrists and have damage to my wrists from impact play because I loved spanking so much and I would hit people way too hard.
Right.
Because it is traumatizing to your wrist and everything. I would say that this collection,
a cute little set.
It's a really cute set. I would say that this is your middle to high masochist set. This is not like your beginner set. It looks super cute, but I'm sorry, 2 silicone and a metal rod. Like,
yeah. No, I'm feeling very, but this is what I'm saying is that I'm feeling very inspired from having just been with people who you would not have expected. Needed kind of more intense implements. And I didn't bring all of these with me.
Right. You're like, next time I got to be ready for even more because who knows?
You gotta have the full range in your kit.
So these are really great things for those kinksters that, you know, maybe seem like they have all the things. I do feel like with kinksters, there's always more you can get because there's always like such nuance to all of the toys. You know, like I would say if you're going to go for a lighter, you know, kind of array for like beginner spankers, you know, just include things like, you know, fur on one side, or instead of a leather paddle, get a slapper that is basically a leather paddle, but it has 2 pieces that kind of slap together. And that can give like great sound without, you know, doing a lot of, you know, pain without giving a lot of pain. So
I think the name of the game with any kind of sensation play, whether you're going to like make it kinky or not, is having implements that can create a variety of sensations.
Yes.
So like, I definitely think that one of the very first things I brought into my kit as like a young person was I have this slapper that has 2, it's like 2 pieces of leather.
Right.
So when you slap with it, they slap like it makes this incredible sound.
Yes.
And don't also discount those sensations that you can create that aren't just tactile sensations.
Yes.
Like things that create sound, or like if you've got, you know, blindfolds that are fuzzy on the inside, not only actually help further black out, you know, like you can't really see down through them, whereas like the really cheap kind of small flimsy ones, like you can actually kind of see out of them if you look down. Those kinds of variety of stimuli are really nice. So getting creative, like if you're thinking about something that's going to be more of like a sensory kit, you know, you want to have your massage candle in there. I love your suggestion of a paddle that's got like fur on one, like faux fur on one side, and then like solid texture on the other side.
I really love those. They're cheesy looking, but I love those like kind of silly string ones. It's like a koosh ball that grew its hair way out long. Those things are really nice for cool downs and warm ups and just sensory, because those tendrils tend to be very cool. And if you've like really warmed up a butt, you know, and then you just kind of wiggle those down and let it drape down, you know, along. It's all a sensory thing. It's almost like thinking about like, it's like ASMR kink, you know, like we got to take a note from Gen Z and be like, all right, there's so much auditory and visual or lack of visual taste, like just thinking about all of our senses and how to play with them, you can really send somebody over the moon.
Yeah.
Blow your mind on Christmas.
Do you remember that the big rush for us around the holidays was actually Christmas to New Year's?
Mm-hmm. Oh, was it?
Yeah,
I
those
guess
were
so.
I mean, in an in-store experience, those were the busiest days aside from those like 5 days leading up
What
to
do you think
Valentine's
that's
Day.
about?
I think that this is like another thing about gifting sex toys. Like if you're gifting to a partner, maybe it's not their Christmas gift. Maybe it's their New Year's gift. And because New Year's just has such a sexy vibe, right? Like it's often represented as like black and gold. You're like imagining that you are, maybe staying at like a really like ringing in the new year in like a sexy or like a really trashy hotel room, or you make a day of it. Like everyone has the first off. It's not as much of a family obligation. Like have a sex date as a way of ringing in the new year.
It's definitely a sexy holiday. And there's the whole like kissing at the, I don't know, bong of the bell or whatever. I've not done New Year's in a long time, obviously. But, my mother would say this thing. She would just make up, I guess, proverbs or something. But she would be like, oh, on New Year's, when the clock strikes 12, you're a virgin again, and you get to decide who you want to give your virginity to. And that's why it's so important that you choose wisely who you kiss. And I was like, oh, okay, she just makes shit up, but it was cute. It was nice. She just liked ideas like that. So speaking of, though, I want to talk about gifting to your partner.
Yeah.
Because this seems like an easier thing, but I think there's some subtleties to it, particularly if you're with someone in a really like a long-term relationship, because there can be a lot of stuff around like, is this, gifting the lingerie. And you're like, oh, this is really a gift for you or whatever, I think that if it is like a Christmas gift, it should really be about the person you're giving it to as an individual. I mean, of course, like give whatever you want. And there's lots of different types of doing this. But I think like the couple's vibrator or something that you're going to use together is a great thing to give like on New Year's or at Valentine's Day. Like we're going to fuck together with this. But wouldn't it be so nice if like your partner gave you something where they were like, this is a toy just for you and your solo time? Like, what if it was a whole like self-care experience, Womanizer just came out, I think like a year ago with a shower head that is specifically for masturbating. You can do all the stuff. It still does all the stuff, but the pulsations and everything, they finally made one that is actually meant for masturbation and stimulation. It would be such a sweet thing to give. And then like with some bath bombs and some, lotions and just like self-care things that's like, when we're not together or, just have some great solo time for you.
Something that's like centered in their pleasure.
Yeah. Something they would really love.
Well, and like the other thing is like your partner can invite you into their solo play practice. Mm-hmm. Like that can be a thing that happens either just like as part of, occasionally it gets integrated into your couple's play, or maybe like you get to be a voyeur to it. And like a really fun thing, if your partner does grant you that gift of like, I'm going to show you my masturbation routine. Like definitely take some fucking notes, right? Yep. Like that is priceless information about your partner's pleasure. And I think to your point, gifting your partner something that is really oriented towards them helps build that trust, like that intimate, erotic trust between the two of you that then just enhances your intimacy. Yeah. Because some people think of masturbation in the context of a relationship as like verging on cheating. And I just think that that is a very, how do I want to say this? It is a very codependent approach
Yep.
to thinking about pleasure. Like, just because you are sexually partnered with somebody does not mean that you own their sexuality.
Right.
And there are lots of benefits to your couples play for each of you. It's like if you go to couples therapy, it's good for both of you to be in individual therapy, you know, like doing the pleasure work on your own, not only just like boosts your own self-confidence and self-knowledge, but it also has that kind of like halo effect of positive benefits into your couples play, into your relationship.
Yeah. And it also sends the message, I think, that you don't see their sexuality as something that's, like you're saying, it's not an ownership, but it's also not like as much of a transactional thing. Or what was it's like I ended up saying this thing as we were breaking up and everything. There seemed to be this thing where I was like, I'm not in charge of your sexuality, or I'm not in charge of my partner's sexual fulfillment. We can fulfill each other sexually and everything, but there is like this certain idea of like, if we're partnered, then it's kind of each other's job to sexually fulfill the other. And I think giving a masturbation item that is not centered around the two of you kind of also expresses like, you are cultivating your own garden. I help tend to it with you and everything, but ultimately it is like our own kind of process that we're going through, even though we may do it with certain people or only one person for the rest of our lives, you know? It's kind of it keys into that codependency that you're talking about.
Yeah. That's a great point.
Oh, I had one last one that's a little weird is, have you ever gifted a sex toy to a parent?
A parent?
Uh-huh.
Well, yes. But I feel like my situation is different than a lot of people's situation because I do this for a living. So like my mom has come to my classes, not all of them, but like, especially in the early days, like she was being supportive and would come to classes. And then I'm sure here and there it's been out of personal interest. So definitely when there's been like a new thing that's come out and I've thought like I don't have a lot of detailed knowledge about her preferences, but I have just enough to kind of know like, oh, there's this new thing that might be something nice for my mom.
Yeah.
But I do think that there's something special about like, I can't imagine that I would have ever gotten to a place of giving my stepdad a sex toy.
And this is an important distinction. Like I was trying to wrap my brain around a situation where I would feel comfortable like giving my dad a sex toy. And I know people have different relationships with their dad. So if it can be done in a way that works for you, great. But ultimately what I was thinking about, it's almost like the reverse of what you were talking about when like the moms would bring their daughters into the pleasure chest. It's like we're of that generation where the stigma of using adult toys went way down and the quality of adult toys went way up. And so I think like millennials in particular have this like sex toy knowledge and access that younger, because they're just coming up and entering the world, but also older because they didn't have access to it or it was so heavily shamed. So I kind of have a similar place in my heart for like particularly older women that maybe they're like, I gave my mom a sex toy when she started going through cancer treatments, and she just was no longer interested in even like having sexual activity, but she still liked to masturbate, you know, well, I mean, sexual partnered activity, but she still liked to masturbate. So, you know, I just wanted to up it past what she was always like a water head massager person, but I got at that time, the Form 2 was huge. So I got her that and she could take it in the tub and stuff like that. But I do think it's like almost this thing of you don't want to go into too much personal stuff. But if there is an older person in your life that would love this stuff if they just had kind of the wherewithal, knowledge, or access to it, I think it's kind of cute still.
Yeah, I think that, again, it's going to depend on the context of your relationship. I have one of my aunts I just sent like a big care package to because just some things happening in her life and like the changes of menopause and all that sort of thing. And I was like, okay, I am sending you the latest and greatest of basically each product category and some lube, and like, please go explore, have a blast. So, maybe it's one of those things where it's like not super comfortable to do with your parent, but maybe you do have that like elder in your life. I have a funny story about this. When I first started working at Babeland, so this was 2007, my grandmother and my uncle came into town to visit. And, there was like some hemming and hawing about whether we were going to tell Nana where I worked.
Was this your Uncle Andy?
Yes, my gay uncle.
Okay.
Yeah, my hairdresser uncle. And, ultimately, like, Andy and my mom decided not to bring Nana into the shop, which, it was actually like the Babeland stores are so cute. The selection is not that broad. It's like such a great newbie store.
Yeah. You feel like you're more like in a Target than you are at a sex shop.
Yeah, it's
like
bright colors. It's really well curated. Sexual, like, health and wellness focused. And so, like, my uncle came in to visit me with my mom. And then I guess they told my grandmother afterwards.
They couldn't keep a lid on it.
That they had come to see me. So, like, basically I get home from work and my grandmother is really upset with me.
Oh,
and
no.
I was like, which didn't actually happen a lot. And I'm like, what do you? And she's like, I just can't believe that you did not trust me to come and see your shop. And I want a new vibrator.
Oh, that's cute. Yay. Runs in the family.
So cute. And her feelings were hurt that I hadn't trusted her with it. I'm like, well, actually, like, it's, so sometimes like that, as like when it skips a generation,
yes,
right? Like,
yes,
there is that thing of like, I totally understand where my mom and Andy were coming from in terms of like protecting, not wanting me to be judged by my grandmother.
Right.
But then like the relationship I had with my grandmother was like, girl, why didn't you get me a vibrator? So, I was like, tell me about the kinds of vibrators you've used before.
Yeah.
And, I sent her a nice selection of like really high quality vibrators that, especially for her, she had not seen any of the developments.
Right.
In toys.
There's so much cool stuff out there.
She was very excited.
Oh, intergenerational. I like that. Skipping a generation. It does feel much more comfortable to give like grandma a vibrator than mom, I think, for most people. I mean, it depends on your grandma.
Yeah.
Oh, I have one more category that's kind of interesting.
Okay.
Is what do you get for someone who does not like vibration?
Oh, yeah. It's so funny.
Because that used to be you.
No, the Leia spot was my starter vibe. Like, I like low rumbly vibrations.
Yeah.
So I like vibration. I just like wasn't, a power queen about it. But I've had some partners who don't like vibration. So, there's a couple things. The womanizer pleasure air products.
Yes.
And I'm not talking suction toys, because those motors really can kind of numb you over time. Like, it's actually just sort of pulling the tissue into like it. You actually have like some friction with the suction toys, whereas like a pleasure air toy, which a lot of different brands have now. I think Romp is Pleasure Air, like the Love Honey Rose is Pleasure Air, and then all the womanizer products are Pleasure Air. It's it's using airwaves,
yes,
to create this almost like suction type stimulation,
but pulsation at the same time.
Yes,
it's the closest thing to oral sex I've ever felt, but at the same time, it's really different. Like I would say, Womanizer is the only other brand besides Magic Wand that gives me a unique orgasm. It's different from any other kind of stimulation.
And they have a line, it's called Arcwave, that is designed for penises. So it's the Pleasure Air technology that targets the frenulum, so the underside of the head of the penis. And that's also supposed to be really great. There's like a couple other like penis. So for penises that don't like vibration, there's like the Hot Octopus line that does kind of like a thumping, not like a vibration, but also like honestly lube. Because if someone likes manual stimulation with their hand, like great. Like who am I to tell you that you need to use a toy? But how about you just use a nice high quality lube on your fingers, on your hand, and it's going to totally change the sensation.
There's those THC enhanced lubes also, if somebody's into that sort of thing, that like I've had different orgasm sensations because of like my clitoris got high on its own from this lube. You know, and you're like, and that's super fun. That's awesome. I was also thinking a great one is the Pure Wand. By Enjoy. It is like, the metal rainbow, stainless steel, and it's such a great, beautiful toy. It doesn't feel like you're giving someone a dick. You know, it's like a penetration toy that you could have out on the counter and somebody would think it was like an art piece. It's just beautiful.
Well, yes, that like the two bulbs that are different size and weight. It's like an internal massager for dummies because the weighting of it, you hardly have to like rock it. It just like a gentle rocking back and forth gives just such a great like urethral sponge massage.
It does that kind of leverage that I was talking about before without the sweatpants, because it just weighs it down right up into the urethral sponge.
Yeah. Yeah. And the Enjoy Pure Plugs are another one that I love, which are the stainless steel weighted butt plugs.
Yes.
Actually, the B-Vibe weighted plugs are pretty cool too. But the shape of the Enjoy, like nothing else is like it, because it just has that really nice curvature. It's a nice bulbous head on it and it's weighted. And so for someone who's like, oh no, I don't really like vibration, if you add a butt plug into any kind of play that you already enjoy, whether it's like masturbation, oral sex, penetration, it's just like having an extra hand that is like stimulating the nerve endings from the backside.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you just added all these layers of sensation into the mix.
Yeah. And that sense of fullness will, and anything you're putting in will just feel even, fuller. I love that too. And you know what I actually wrote down for newly adult, cis, particularly cis het men, although, any kind of sexuality, I think this would be great, is instead of going the penis route, which I'm sure they've explored a lot already, go the butt route, because I think it's so important for them to know what it's like to be penetrated, what kind of care can be involved, what kind of pleasure can be involved. And then the other thing that I have for like, newly anointed adult men is around books that talk about how to, anatomy, all this stuff. Like there's a lot of stigma around masculine people having to ask questions, and just going for it instead. So it would be really great to just hand them some things of like, the book about female orgasm or the guide to gay sex or whatever they might be interested in, so they can just have a big old reference guide that is not porn. because a lot of things you'd be just like, oh, just look it up on the internet, but it's so questionable, the variety of things that could come from that, so it's nice to hand them like something that, is like a legit good, where consent is involved and taking your time and warm ups and not being, penetration focused and all of this stuff. I would just have them go out into the world being,
I love that,
upstanding young men, and putting metal in their butts.
Yes. Yes. If you have sex toy recommendations that we did not mention, please engage with us on Instagram or TikTok. You can leave something in the comments. You can send us a message. fyeahpod@gmail.com. We are fuckyeahpod on Instagram, TikTok, and Patreon. Maybe soon Blue Sky as well. We'll see. We're hearing lots of good things about it.
And send us your questions. Maybe there's someone that you're just like, I know I want to get them a pleasure product, but I don't know what. Send it in. We'll do our best to answer it. Or any pleasure product or sexuality questions you have. Dear Abby us. We're here.
Yes. Fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Thank you for tuning in to Fiercely Independent Media. Fuck Yeah Podcast is hosted, edited, and produced by Robin Jennings and Sarah Tom Chesson, also known as my mom. Theme music by Suno AI. Your support means a lot. You can give to the show and receive perks at patreon.com/fuckyeahpod. You can also rate and review the show or share it with a friend. You can reach us at fyeahpod@gmail.com. Bye for now.